Yeah, like they wouldn't know better, right? They rocked up and then literally it's like today we start turning on videos, right? They started today. It's like they didn't know before we didn't do it,
Yeah.
right? And so there's that side of it there, and it's just for us to not, I think, be afraid
Mm.
to hold someone accountable for it.
Warning: Damian Andrews' growing revenue and profit, if implemented, will put more money in your pocket. Please use with caution.
Welcome to Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit with international speaker and revenue and growth specialist Damian Andrews. This is your source for practical, usable, and simple action steps that you can do every day to put more money in your pocket. And now, the host of Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, Damian Andrews.
And the crowd cheers wildly to the trumpeting blasts of elephants sliding through eyes of needles. This is Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, the program that deals with all things that puts more cash in your pocket. This is the show that handles your revenue riddles, profit puzzles, operational oddities, and culture conundrums. I am the one, the only Damian Andrews, and on today's show is the amazing and wonderful Richard Phu. Now, Richard is a managing director at Outsourcing Angel, and he helps SME business owners scale by automating, systematizing, and using virtual assistants. And Richard is also the author of Secrets of the Ultimate Man, 5 Steps to Mastering the Game of Life, where he teaches you how to stop being prey and become a predator. His background includes years of management consulting at KPMG, and we won't hold that against him. And it is his pleasure to have been worked with, or having worked with amazing leaders such as Dr. John Gray, Tony Horton, Commando Steve, and Neil Patel. And he is fondly known as the Geek Master to his team. Richard, pleasure to have you on the show.
Damian, mate, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat here with you guys, and hopefully, we can bring some awesome value here as well.
Yeah, you have such a diverse background, and you've covered off a number of challenges. And what I love, we were talking about this in the pre-show for the audience, is how you've embraced this new world that opened up to us post-COVID. And during COVID, we learnt that we could do all these things that were available to us, like working remotely and having meetings online, all those kind of things, and connect with a wider audience. Now, you've fully embraced that in your business, and your business doesn't have an office, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So we don't actually run an office at all. I'm literally at home, right, with like my 3 coworkers, which are the 3 cats at home with me, right. So if you see one jump in the screen, if you're watching the video, right, you'll see it. So yeah, like we're really big on freedom, and I think for me, Damien, outside of like my corporate career, like what I realized a lot for myself was because I used to travel like pretty much an hour each way to get to the city, to get to the office, and I was just like losing so much time. Like that's sometimes 2.5 3 hours if the traffic's horrendous, right? The train lines aren't running well, and I'm like, why am I doing this every day? And then am I supposed to be doing this? I finished out like what 20 23 24, right? And I'm like, am I supposed to be doing this for another 40 years? Like, how's this a good time, right?
Mm.
How's this good use of my life? And on top of that, I felt like it wasn't making a social impact, working with like the big management consulting companies and the big corporations. And so that's why I started thinking what matters for me. What matters for me is freedom, so that I can actually be around and be ready to support my future family, right? That I want to have. And, that means taking my kids to school. That means helping them with homework and, managing my life around that, not being dictated by what the corporate career told me I should be having. So yeah, freedom is a huge thing here for myself, Damien, and the company that we run as well.
I love that you've done that, and obviously the changing demographics in the world has really had an impact on companies and their ability to attract employees. We know now, as much as we used to think the world was going to become overpopulated, we actually know it's going the other way now. And the demographics aren't there. There aren't the younger people coming in to actually fill out the workforce, and there's a labor shortage, and that's not going to change. And big companies, I noticed in a report recently that the focus had shifted from being sales orientated. That was the main focus. How do we get more sales? Now it's actually focused on employee retention. How does someone in a remote working environment attract people to that environment, but more so, how do you create an element of trust that goes both ways, that you're going to get the work done that you needed and the person is actually going to do the quality work that you need? That's the same question.
Yeah. That's a really, really great question, right? Like, Damien, and when I think about it, it's how do we attract the talent, right? And I've been doing like remote work even before COVID, right? Where I used to bring in virtual assistants, rent online companies, did the whole, laptop lifestyle thing, right? Where I could travel the world, work on my laptop, and I was freelancing for myself too, like, consulting and all that as well. And, hiring virtually. And what I've realized for myself, and as we work more here, right, in Outsourcing Angel, is attracting the talent also comes down to, I guess, the situation of the person that is applying, as well as the perks that we have, right? And so what do I mean by the situation of the person? So, we brought in interns before in Outsourcing Angel. We brought in young and, fresh graduates type of thing as well. And what I've realized and what I've talked to with, our founder as well, like Lynn, is that, hey, look, it's great to have cheap labor, right? Interns and stuff like that. But what is challenging is they just don't understand, right? How the real work is like, right, out there. They don't understand that they have to go travel. They don't understand that, maybe we created such a great place, but they think every company's like this, And so for us, one of our hiring policies is that it sounds weird, right? But I want to look for someone who is on the verge or is burnt out or fully and it sounds really off. It sounds like just like a predator, right? Like a predator. I'm like, hey, waiting for someone who's just disillusioned, who's just who's tired of, the way of life that they've been taught that or trained up to live. It's like this heavily relies on my own experience where I've gone out, I run my own businesses, and I've burnt myself out to the point where I'm like, you know what, Damian, like before I came to Outsourcing Angel, I was like, I don't want to be a business owner anymore, right? Why? Because I'm not built for that. I've subscribed to someone else's dream and I've forced it upon myself to pretend to be something else, right? And so that's why I went through that whole journey of, doing the whole men's coaching stuff, realizing and trying to be literally Asian Tony Robbins, right? Like learn how to clap on the stage. I did all these courses. I did T. Harv Eker's courses, and on the stage and all of that, right? Wrote the book and all of that, and podcasts and did all, and I can't remember how many videos now. It must be 200 videos, right? On like Facebook and stuff like that. And it's just, I was putting it on, but I wasn't being me, And so that's why I realized, I'm not actually meant to be a pure number one founder who creates from 0 to 1, right? I don't do that. What I'm really great at is going from 1 to 10 to 100, right? I'm better at the scaling side. And that's what I'm like, what if I supported someone like that, And that's how, I came across, Lynn and Outsourcing Angel. And then, I started off as, head of operations, then moved myself up, right? To then basically, and this is why I think of myself now as Damian, is like, I'm an entrepreneur, right? Meaning I have the entrepreneur like mindset and thoughts and traits, but I apply it in an organization where, it makes sense for me. And so, the reason why, I guess for me, why Outsourcing Angel was a great choice was it's work from home, right? So you can work anywhere you want, right? As well as, as we experience more things going forward, right? Like COVID, when I joined pre-COVID, and then when COVID hit in, and we weren't making money, right? Like everyone was scared in the world. And so we lost a lot of clients. at the early stages, and we did a lot of crazy stuff to try and boost sales. But one of the things that we realized is if we don't have money to pay our staff, right, or give them increases, how do we make them feel better? And one of the things my boss Lynn did, right, through consultation with me is, what if we gave a rested day off for every staff member for one day a month, any month, any day you want in a month, right? And this was before everyone else started doing the wellness days and all that stuff too. And so we did that, and then we started doing more, I guess what you could say, community type of engagement events in the team, especially in a remote team, right? And so we started doing like monthly team updates where I said to Lynn, I'm like, hey, I think the team, you should really open up the books of sorts to show the team, hey, it's not like we're Lynn swimming in a pool of cash, right? From it, it's literally we're reinvesting almost everything back into the business, to make it better. And from then on, we've been sharing the books, not obviously to a certain degree, right? But opening it up, saying how much profit have we made this month, right? How much revenue have we made? What are our expenses looking like, right? On that side, and so a lot of that is opening up a lot of things that most people aren't used to, right, or don't want to do. Like then they don't want to tell their employees how much profit they make every month, because then they're scared. Employees will be like, then pay me more, right? So we do things like that. And one of the other big things, Damian, I thought about recently was building trust in a remote environment. Is we're doing stuff like this, right? We're actually seeing each other's faces. And this is what's so interesting, Damian. Like when I talk to my friends who work in government or corporate, right? And they're like, Richard, I don't know how you do it working on Zoom all the time, right? Like, it's so boring. Like, how do you connect with anyone? Right? I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, I connect all the time. I'm having meetings all the time, and we're on Zoom I'm like half my week I'm on Zoom, right? Most of the time in different team meetings or client meetings. And then I asked them, don't you turn on videos in your Zoom meetings? And she said no. So, and this is the whole corporate thing, right? Which is like, they jump on Zoom meetings, but everyone has the videos off, right? And so it's just basically a teleconference.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that's why I think big companies are struggling, or companies that are adapting, not enforcing a function like this. So, I knew I ran other online companies where my other business partners didn't want to have the video on, right? And that's why it didn't work out well. But when I came here, Lynn, I remember she's like, hey, she'll call out someone like, hey, Damian, how come your video's off? Right?
You're like me. We have, trouble in the morning with our bad hair. It's just...
takes a lot of time to make this type of hair, right, man?
Exactly. It's an interesting point that you raised there about the connection and creating that connection, because I've noticed that with a number of clients that I've worked with, that they do regularly leave the videos off, and that makes that connection really difficult. How do you encourage people to want to turn that on, especially if they've got a bad hair day like I do today?
Yeah. So it's very hard, especially when it's clients, right? It's very hard to tell the client, hey, turn on your video. And they'll be like, why? I don't want to, right? And then it's like, okay, right? When it's in our internal team, it's easier because it's like, this is how we work.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And, sometimes we do it very nicely with clients as well, where like, hey, Damian, I noticed your video is not on. Is something wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And most of the time they're like, oh, I don't look so great or whatever. And look, for us, it's like, if your internet's bad, or let's say you do have a bad hair day, right? You'd be like, just turn it on for a bit so I know it's actually you, right? There. And sometimes, they do it, sometimes they don't. It's really hard to enforce it, but especially if it's in your team, I find it easier to just say, this is the norm, right? So like, we'll take notice if someone...
to build that culture, is that right? Where this is the norm, this is what we do. Yeah. Yeah,
like they wouldn't know better, right? If they rocked up and then literally it's like, today we start turning on videos, right? And they started today. It's like, they didn't know before we didn't do it, right? And so there's that side of it there. And it's just for us to not, I think, be afraid to hold someone accountable for it. And it's just like, and this is the funniest thing is, you get virtual assistants, you get people working online. They're most likely like me, right? Introverted. I don't want to talk to nobody. I just want to get stuff done, right? And then one of the guys that we brought on, I remember he's like, "Hey, why are there so many meetings here? Right? I just want to get work done." And it wasn't until I explained to him, "Look, these meetings are done in certain ways because you don't get to walk over to John's desk and go, 'What are you doing, John?' Right? What's happening?" Right? Especially in a remote world. So every week we have some team meetings, weekly team meetings. And in like, it might go for an hour, Damian, but half of that time is spent actually like bonding, right? Like when I say bonding, you could call it icebreaker questions, but it's typically questions we ask one question and it goes around the team, and it's just so that I get to understand a little bit more about yourself, Damien, right? Like it's not a stupid question like what'd you do on the weekend, right? I'm not saying that is stupid, but it's just like I don't get
There are
depth.
no stupid questions, just stupid people. So, sorry.
Right. Yeah. And what we try to do is encourage the questions of depth. Right. So one of the things we do here is we have like started this year a theme, and the theme this year is courage. Right. Uh,
Oh.
and so we try and frame the questions around there as like, you know, it might be like, you know, tell me of a time, Damien, where you had to deploy courage to, you know, confront someone, right, about something important for you, and how did that go? Right. And so we're trying to go deeper with other people and understand, you know, what ticks for them, what's gone through their life. And you know, it's really great because it gets people to get to share their stories, you know, and that's what we try and build here. And, you know, some people will be like, oh, that's a waste of time. Why do that? But if you're remote, you don't have that opportunity any other time to do it. Right. It's not like I'm
How
going
have
to
you
message.
found the response to that? Is it, I mean, you said some people don't like it, but generally, how have you found the response to that type of?
Funny because I've talked about like, hey guys, let's just cut the meeting shorter with this, right? And then people have said this is actually the thing I look forward to the most, Richard, right?
Mm.
And then I'm like, okay, fine. Like I know it's not productive time, as in like it's not going to make the
Well, is
team.
it though? I mean, coming back to that analogy of the two people cutting wood, and one keeps sitting down while they're doing it, and
Mhm.
then at the end of the day, that person that kept sitting down has more wood. Why? Well, when I was sitting down, I was sharpening my axe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that an analogy for what you're doing, where you're actually giving people that ability to connect and feel good about themselves, and therefore when they get back to doing the work, they're more productive?
And that's an interesting thing, right, Damien? It is like, what is the classification of productivity, right?
Mm,
In a traditional sense, it's like if you do a minute of work, I expect $1 or whatever it is, right? Some ROI on that, you
yeah.
know. And it's like, how do you measure that, right? It's very hard to measure because it's morale, right?
Mm.
It's not like, hey, before the meeting, Damien, how do you feel? After the meeting, how do you feel, right? And did that lead to you punching out more work? It's so like there's so many other variables involved with it, and I think it does, and it ties in with this is one of the things we do. It's just one, right? The other thing we try and do, right, Damien, is I have one-on-one meetings every month with people who directly report to me, and I try and create this like little sheet where they answer 4 questions, but it's trying to create that reflection time. They can't rock up and fluke it and make it on the fly. It's 4 questions, and I'm like, you just need to fill in these 4 questions before, even if it's 5 minutes before, and you just think about it. All I want is reflection time, so that then you can think about why do we, and ask these and get prompted these questions of how do we improve something, how do I make something better, how do I, you know, make something easier for me or the team or other people, you know. And that's one of the things I try and push in here is like, when I came in 5 years ago, the team was very much like, oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, I got to do that. Like running busy bees, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't want business to be just busyness, right? It should be like, you know, boring, because meaning, you know, you put something in, you're going to get exactly this output, right? And that's what we're trying to do is get them into proper routines, proper procedures, proper processes, so they know what to do. And then it's like, cool, got some time. I don't mind if you got time, Damien. You're like, go chill, go research stuff, go look into something, and then be like, come back with an idea for me, right? I'm like, hey, why don't we try this? Or why don't we do this? I saw someone else do that, right? That's what we're trying to look for here in the company, and try and create that space.
Is that connection, that regular connection, something that does actually work? Do you notice that people like that regular, smaller connection as opposed to, a longer connection? at less regular intervals. And I put this in context to people I work with online, certainly my staff. There's a few that come in and thought we would catch up once a week. And I said, no, we're going to catch up every day. It might be for just 10 minutes, but we're going to have a touch point every day. And initially they're like, oh, what? But it changed the dynamic of how we related, and they actually liked that a lot. Is that, are you finding that as well, that people are shifting in and recognizing that we can have that connection? Because we know from the research that even though we're more connected than ever in history, people feel more lonely than ever in history. Does that connection where you actually got the camera on, you're actually having a meaningful conversation, do you think is creating a deeper connection and helping people's well-being, mental well-being as well?
I think it is, because I remember in one of the meetings, like our marketing team, it was raised by someone in the marketing team saying, hey, I think we should get rid of this question thing, right? It's wasting like an extra half hour or 20 minutes in this meeting that's going on for an hour, right? And people voted against getting rid of it because some of the people were like, hey, look, honestly, like this meeting, I actually look forward to, because most of my week, I don't really get to talk to many other people, right, in there. And I think there is benefit for it, and I think it helps. And I think I love what you're talking about in terms of your cadence, right, where you can do it once a week or every day for smaller amounts. And I think it depends on the work, because we did implement things like a daily huddle, where it's like the team gets together for 10 minutes and then talking about what they're doing. But we found for our team, it kind of gets lost in the moment of how important that thing is, more because people end up trying to subconsciously outdo each other by saying, look, I got a list of 12 things, you got a list of 15, right? And they just read out the list, and I'm like, it got to a point where I tune out, and I'm very aware of that. Like, if you're talking, I tune out, and I'm like, all right, hey, so something's not right here because it's not valuable, right? And if it's not valuable for me, it's most likely not valuable for many other people here. And so then we changed it up so that they meet up twice a week, right? Unless there's a problem. And we shifted the daily huddle from, I don't care about what you're doing, Damian. I care about, what you're stuck on, right? That's more important for me now and the team, so that, if you're stuck on something, say something, so then someone go, oh, you should go talk to Bob, right? Or you should talk to Marianne, because they can go do this, And so that's what I've hammered down now as the main focus of the daily huddles, or the huddles that they do. And so, yeah, I think like the connection part, people want to work online, be on their own. Introverts love it, right? But in saying that, there still definitely is a need to connect with other people, and we have to, as a company, create that facility there. Because if you're new in a remote company, it's not like I'm going to message someone there who I've never met and said, let's chat, right? Do you like games? Do you like cars or whatever, right? Like, no one's ever going to do that. Why? Because then it's like, there's one now screenshot evidence of like, hey, this person ain't trying to do work, right? Not that we do that, but it's just that subconscious feeling, right, that you never want to bother someone else. And so we want to create those spaces where we can, so that people do connect. And then when we do like example, we're going to go on a company retreat, right? We've been doing this for each year until COVID happened. So it's been about 3 years now since we've had one. And so we're doing it in November, where we're flying our teams in, right, to come in and then physically connect as well together. And we found good benefit out of that, realizing, yes, we're remote, and there are times where it's helpful to have these physical events where we can get to know each other on a faster, deeper level than staying purely online all the time.
And how do you manage the productive side of that? And that's not diminishing the connection and the productivity, the sharpening of the axe that's created through those connections that you're doing. And I'll highlight that. I remember when I first started working corporate, and I won't say the year because it dates me and I'm older than I look. And I remember being in the corporate office, and I was quite diligent. So when something came in my in tray, I dealt with it and it came out of my in tray and went to wherever it was. And then I went on and did other things in the office and moved forward. But my in tray was empty. And about in a couple of weeks, I got pulled into the office and, well, not literally dragged, but called into the office.
Mm.
And I said, we want to have a chat to you about your workload because it doesn't look like you're doing very much. I went, what? And they said, well, your in tray is always empty. And we had this discussion. I explained what was going on. And I walked out of the office. I went straight to the waste paper bin, grabbed a big chunk of paper about 2 inches thick, and threw that in my in tray and just left that there. Because that was a metric by how they measured productivity. Did you have a lot of, and I walked around the office every now and going, oh my God, I'm so busy. I just, and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But with a remote environment, you don't have that, which is, I think, is a good thing. But how do you manage that productivity? And I love what you said there, that you have a focus of what are you stuck on. I love that as a question to be asking people and finding out what they're stuck on, because if you free that up, all of a sudden people surprise you with what they get done. Well, that's my experience. But how do you, what metrics do you use to actually work out, okay, how are people being productive?
Yeah, and look, in a remote world, it's not easy because, look, if we wanted to, we get like, those time recorder, screenshot things that, and I'm like, we're not down for that. Yeah, I'm like, we're not down for that. And on top of that, that means I have to hire at least one other person to go look at all that stuff too. And it's like,
a communist philosophy, isn't it? We're going to have this whole administrative thing to oversee people.
Correct. And it's like, what's the point of that, right? Like, do I really care about that much? And it's interesting because, yes, we do have metrics. We check, we have people with each of the team members have metrics to go hit each week as well, which we review as part of the team meetings, right? So there's that whole, hey, get to know each other. Then we do a very quick section on the team's KPIs, right? And metrics and where that's tracking. And then we go into like, hey, let's talk about announcements, stocks, that type of stuff there. And so for us, I'll often, look, do we look at the metrics for everyone every day? No, right? That's not possible. And so we're just looking at the bigger picture of things most of the time, right? So examples, we look at key things like our pipeline, for example, where, if we're recruiting virtual assistants for clients, we want to know how many open deals are there that are stuck, right? Or in that like interview stage that's taking a while, right? Because, it's a key function of ours. Other side is that our consulting side is like, how many projects do we have? Because I'm pretty much the one that built the consulting side. I understand the projects and each of the clients and where they're at very, very easily. I can see and go down deeper with each of the teams. What's happening with this one? What's happening with that one? What's happening like that? And so we have high level metrics, but I guess the thing for me, Damian, is often like, it sounds weird, right? I think a lot of it is also having the team hold each other accountable, right? Are they going to be as hardcore as me in it? Probably not, right? But the idea is for them to, gradually hold each other accountable and to help each other work through, the challenges that they're having. So yes, you hold someone accountable, but in our team, we want to make sure that it's like, yeah, it's you, Damian, driving it, but if you need help, Bob's over there, Jan's over there to help you as well, right? And so for me, one of the big things is we focus, yes, results do matter, but what's more important to me often in a lot of the work we do, Damian, is like the progress, right? So it's like, if we're doing a new project and we're testing something out, if the results look bad, that's okay, as long as are we going in the right direction, right? Is it we haven't hit the results we want yet, but are we trending that way? Right. And that's what I look for a lot, especially when we hire new people, right? We do projects, right? Even marketing work, because, marketing changes all the time. It's like the results might not be there, but is this in the right trend direction that we want to head towards? And that's, if you say, is there a metric that we focus on? It's probably that metric, right? Is I just want to know how we're trending in specific areas so that we can then work out, do we need to review things? Do we need new tools? Do we need, new people, new direction, new strategy, or whatever it is to help bring us back onto the right direction?
And with that, I mean, we talk about how the task will expand to the allotted time. And I know from my experience when I was working in the corporate environment in an office, you'd often have people come in early, they'd turn on their computer, do a few things to show that they're in the office, then they'd go off and get a coffee and do some other things. But it seemed to be the whole management philosophy was around a person actually being there, not really focused on the productivity side of things. So it became a time KPI. Were you in the office on the days? How often were you in office? How long were you in the office? And generally, if you wanted to get promoted, you come in early before the boss gets there. I mean, you might fluff around during the day, and then you'd wait till the boss goes home, and then you'd go home, and you'd also make sure the boss noticed that you were still there before the boss left. Generally.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, in an online environment, in a remote environment, that's difficult as well. So, can you expand on how that shift and how you manage people day to day? Is it because it can't be done by is someone in the office? You don't know what they're working. So, what are key metrics that you actually do look at? And you touched on some there, but can you expand on that?
Yeah, I can go a little bit deeper. So one of the things we do is we treat Slack, right, as our virtual office.
Mm-hmm.
So, people will come in and say, hey, good morning, right? People say, hey, I'm going to lunch, right? So the idea in the remote world is over communicate, right? For it to be successful, meaning, hey, I'm here, I'm in the office and this is what I'm doing. Or if you're not, mention it, right, at the start so that people know. And so that's one of the basics for most of the team, right? That work with us here. So then I know if you're in the office or you're online, right, Damien, that if I ping you and then, if you take like half a day to respond, I'll be like, where the hell have you been? Right, Damien, were you on something important? Right. So we have that system that is in place. Not that we check it's not like a roll call where then I pull it up halfway through the day and see who's there. I got no time for that, right? So we do that. In terms of other metrics to see if someone's doing stuff during the day, because I look after a lot of teams. I look after all of our operation teams. I look after the marketing team as well at the moment. So often I'm spread across things, right? And so usually I'm focused on, I guess, what matters for me first is okay, clients. Are there any client issues that pop up from the previous day first, right? And usually I'll know because our teams are instructed, if a client issue pops in, drop it in Slack in this channel here so that we're aware, right? And then what I look at is, have they identified what the problem is, and then have we got clear actions, right, to go and remediate that as best as we can, right? So I'm looking through those things, right? You could call it a debrief report, and then if I feel it's more complicated, then I'm then we need to go talk, right? Me and my team talk how we go do that and address that. Otherwise, we have automations, right, that are built in. So let's say a client has paid to get started on the project. We have an automation that pumps it into Slack to let the teams know, hey, there's a new client coming in. Please go get ready and get this person onboarded because they booked in an onboarding call for this time, right? So those are ways for us to see things are moving, right? I check our CRM to see deals are moving, communications are occurring, right? If needed, if I wanted to. Otherwise, usually there's a lot of meetings that we have in place where I might drop into a meeting, get updates about certain projects that we're working on. And so for me, it's a lot of it's not like I have a dashboard and I can see oh look, people are working, right? That way. I mean, it's just having regular cadences to get these updates, from the team. And I think that's kind of what we've built. I would love to go build more dashboards to have this, and then have the team have better data to then bring back better approaches to resolve it, that type of stuff. But it really depends because I'm so spread across different things. I will have a weekly marketing meeting where I then talk to my team, right, and go like, what are we doing, and what have we seen? What do we want to do? How do we want to experiment, right? And right now, I'm in a process of like I guess you could call it re-educating them, because our marketing manager's on maternity leave right now, and they've just been, I guess, spoon-fed, I guess, by her, right? Of like, do this, do this, do this. While I come in, I'm like, I'm not a marketing person, guys, but I'm looking after the team, and I'm like, this is what I understand about marketing is you guys should just be like mad scientists and coming up with ideas of testing stuff, because that's what marketing is. You're just testing stuff. So I'm like, bring your ideas to the table, guys, and let's do it. Right, like that's my approach here with them. Is like, let's do it and let's move forward. It's like, are we clear on what we're doing? And they're stepping up more to then do more of the things that they weren't doing before, because they were waiting for someone, right? And there's this phrase of like, hey, what was it? Is I try and implement this is like, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, right? Go do your thing first. It's very unlikely they're going to do something that's going to make it really bad for us, right? If it is, look, even if you post something inappropriate, not inappropriate, but not correct, right, on social media, you can just delete the post, right? We're not like, the prime minister where we post something and then delete it later. People are going to like screenshot it and do that stuff later, right? Like we're not that big, So it's like nothing you'd make as a mistake can't be fixed most of the time, right? There. And so we're trying to do those types of things here so that it's not about me asking for updates every day, every minute, because honestly, like most business owners don't have time to look at that. Even though they say they want to, it's a control mechanism within ourselves, an ego thing of like, I need to know what's happening and I need to know that. And it's like, we do, but at the same time, I'm a real big believer of, give the people space. Let's see, if they're off rate.
I love the word you use there, control. Is that?
Yes.
Do you think we're shifting from that time-based management style where you had that control to see that the person was there? You probably didn't really know if they were being productive or not, but I know I did it. Big thing of paper in the intro, walk around looking like I'm busy, even though I probably wasn't as busy as I looked like. And that's probably not the right thing to say, but it was just over-exaggerated. I was still very, very productive. And have we now shifted to a more results-based leadership style where we set, here's a clear objective, and if you get it done in 5 minutes or an hour, really don't care, just get it done by the time when we need it done. So, and is that how you think we're shifting as far as a leadership style?
I think we want to shift that way, but our old habits die hard, right? It's like, we talk to clients, they want that. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I have 20 hours worth of work for my VA, right? And it's just this very, I guess,
we've got a course on delegation to help with that. If you can't find 20 hours,
it's just like, why does it matter if your VA has 20 hours of work or not? If they free you up that time, right? Even if they free you up 10 hours, and you pay them 20 hours and it takes them 15 hours, like you still save 10 hours, right? Yeah. And it's for some people, it's a like math game, right? An ROI game, right? It's like I'm not maximizing what I'm paying for, right? But in all honesty, like I'm quite sure any employee that is hired, they're not 100% productive, right? If you get them to 80%, that's friggin' fantastic, right? But
I've never met an employee that doesn't go out for coffee.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, it's like, and I knew that when I came in. I'm like, I know, and I told Lynn, I'm like, we can't expect everyone to be at 100%, full, like on it all the time. They will do it sometimes, right? But not all the time, right? And so that's why I'm like, we have to be okay with that. Right? Because at the end of the day, unless we give them some part of the business, right, like shares or whatever, why would they bust their balls to go and be fully productive? They won't, And then people shift over to the results-based thing, but it's results-based on conditions, right? Of like, I want the result done, Damian, but I want it done today, right? And it's like, I can't get that thing today. I can't give you 1 million followers today. That way. And so, it is results based, but that's why I push a lot into like, it's the results important, but what's more important is the progress, right? And I think it's just what we see today in the world is people are a little bit less patient, right? In the instant gratification world that we live in. And so then they want things fast. They want it done exactly right? But they don't want to pay that much either for it as well. And so it's just a very complex situation of, I do think we're trying to get there, but it's like, but I want the return right now. Right? When you
How
can't
do you
get
adjust that shift, that mind shift to them going, hey, there is a reality in anything. Some things just take time, and no matter how hard you push it. And one of my clients they're building a compressor. When I say compressor, it's supplying Melbourne with gas, so it's a big compressor, and it had to be done before last winter, and there was certain things that you could move forward, but then there was constraints with that. And they had an unlimited budget. There was an unlimited budget, and it was, it's not possible. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at this, it's going to happen in the time frame it's going to happen. Yes, things did move forward. How do you show people that there is a certain reality as to, that time of what it takes to make things happen?
Yeah, and that's an education process that we try and go through with an onboarding with our clients is, look, like Damian, you get a virtual assistant, right? We put in these systems, it doesn't mean you double your money today, right? It doesn't mean you double your time freedom right now. It takes time. And unfortunately, especially when you work with humans, right? You don't know. It's a variable. It's a huge variable. As much as we try and get you the best people, right? You don't know how quickly they adapt to your industry, your products, your services, even you as a boss, right? And so a lot of the times it's, when we're trying to identify the issues early with the clients and the VAs, so that it's like, hey, we're noticing this. We notice some small frustration, and it's about working with these business owners. Sometimes they don't know how to bring up their feedback, right? They're like, it's kind of like this. It's like, Damian, your standard could be up here, but you're letting things come in at this level. And what I always say to them is like, your standard's up here, but you tolerate this, meaning your real standard's there, right? and so your standard's what you tolerate, and so you want your standard to be up there. Then you need to be willing to hold other people accountable to it, right? Yeah. And that is a lot of uncomfortable conversations to have, especially with someone new, but you can do it in the right way, right? Where we're always like, look, let's say, the results aren't going there, or things aren't doing, then the VAE or whoever's not following the instructions properly. You can have your assumptions, and this is what happens, and this is what everyone has judgments and makes judgments, right, from what they see. But then I always say, but you need to put that aside. You put your ego aside. You have to put the need to be right aside, so that then you can come in and talk to your team and go, hey, help me understand how we got here, Damian, right? And look, your assumption, your judgment might be right, but at the end of the day, like, there's potentially a perspective that you haven't thought about or even considered. And then it's like, oh, I see now, right? That you didn't have this tool, so that's why you had to go do this other stuff. That's why it took a lot more time, right? Or whatever it is. And that's how you had to do more manual work, then that created more errors, right? And that's what I try and carry with myself a lot, is like, I can assume that, I might look at it like, how the hell did Damian not understand how to send this email, right? But then I'm like, wait, I could be wrong. It's like, I could be wrong, right? And it's like, Damian, help me, like, what happened here, right? And I try really hard to just be like, help me understand. And, that's the only way to open them up, right? And to create more trust, right? Versus if I came in and go, Damian, what's wrong with you? How can you not be able to send this email? Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't create any trust. It doesn't help anyone, right? They're going to get defensive. And so for me, it's always about, how do I lower their defenses so I can step in, right, and understand them more. And when I understand them more, then I can readjust and re-guide them to be like, okay, I know you're going down this way, but I kind of need you to go like that, right? I need you to bend the bit this way. And this is why we need to bend it this way because of blah, 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 right?
Mm.
And then the real key is next time, if that happens, does Damien follow or learn from what I explained? If he doesn't, I'll go in it again and go, hey, what happened? Like, didn't I make sense last time? And let's see what you say. If you go, oh, Richard, yeah, you made sense, but I don't know, right? I didn't register for me. I'll make a mental note. Okay, maybe I have to try something different with Damien, right? And then third time it happens again, and I'm like, either Damien's lazy and doesn't understand it, right, and give a crap about it, or I really don't. This task is so complicated that it needs more like help or something like that, right?
How do you set that up with the employee? And I think we're all victims of the good and the bad our parents teach us. And certainly there's a lot of great quotes that I now, you realize you're an adult when you quote your parents and realize how wise they were, but then sometimes some of that isn't helpful as well. And my mum was always very good at encouraging me to, when I was younger, that embrace the diversity of people, and give people the benefit of the doubt, and that kind of thing. So as I was working through, I would often hire people that I thought I could teach and train, but they didn't have the right character, and I spent more time trying to get them to do something that they never were going to do. And it was something that I learned, I think, too late in life. Was a quote that someone shared with me, and it applied both in business and in personal relationships, was no amount of skill will fix a poor partner choice. And not to say that the person is a bad person, that you're just not a right fit for each other. And this, I'm applying this in the business side here, where we're talking about finding the right employee fit. So you're looking for someone that has the right level of skill, the right attitude, and the right connection to your values as well, and also the impact that you're trying to make as a company. That's a big one I like to focus on, is what is the impact, not the widget that you're selling, but the impact of that widget. And if a person connects to that, they connect on a deeper level. What processes do you use actually when onboarding people, before you onboard them, to actually assess, are we a good fit for each other?
And it's a really good question, because it's not worked out recently for us until we actually figured out our core values, right? And we redeveloped our core values as a business. And so I'll tell you, like, our original core values, right, were ones that Lynn made up, right, which was, and I laugh at this all the time because I'm like, this is the worst, right? It was like love, happiness, and freedom, right? And I'm like, what the hell, Lynn? How do I show happiness? How do I show or live? You can live freedom, but how do you do that in a work sense, right? How do you do that? How do you, at work, you can't always be happy, unfortunately, because you can't be happy doing everything that you're assigned, right? There. And it's like, yeah, right. And so I'm like, we need to redevelop that, right? And so then we redeveloped it to what we call the ACCT, right? Which is, appreciate, right? So we want to make sure people who work here with us appreciate what we have, like how we've set things up, right? And the opportunities that they get here as well. We want them to be consistent, right? Delivering their best consistently, right? And the best doesn't mean you're hammering your PB, your personal best, every day. Like Usain Bolt, when he was running, he didn't hit new world records every run, right? It's not. It's your best at that moment, at that time, with the information you do have, right? That's what I think about. And then we have courage, right? We don't want you to stay where you're at. We want you to expand yourself, think about different approaches, and be willing to, speak up. We want you to be courageous, right? That way. And then the last thing is transparency, right? Is we want you to be transparent with us, and we are transparent with you. If in any situation where we can be, because I don't believe in holding back much information, right? Because it doesn't create trust in that way. And so, those are the 4 core values. And so when we go higher, we focus a lot on that, And the courageous side is a big driver because it's about growth, right? It's about like the attitude, right? Are they going to, be courageous, say, hey, Damian, I'm lost. I don't know what to do here, right? Are they going to be courageous enough to go and ask other people and go seek out information, right? If they're stuck on something first, And so we focus a lot around those four core values to try and understand attitude wise, is this the right person? Skill wise, like most of the time, look, I'll give a very good example, right? We have a consultant with us, right? His name's Pietro. He's run his own businesses before, but we put him in. I brought him in to the Systemise and Scale Up consulting side, which is where we do the automations, process streamlining, so that people are ready and can maximize the use with their VA, right? And he had zero experience in automation, zero, right? And I remember when I brought him in, and I'm like, hey, Lynn, our founder, can you check and cross-reference with me that this guy is a good fit for the company? Because I'm too close to him, right? His wife is like best friends with my wife now, right? And so I kind of know him, but I don't really know him in a work sense. And so I remember Lynn sit down to me, he's like, Richard, why are you putting this person in front of us and saying he's a good fit here? And I said, because Damian, I said this, I go, Lynn, he has the attitude, right, and the hunger to learn and grow. He says he doesn't know automations. I get that, right? But it's not like there's that many people in the world that know automations, right? And are in a position to join us. And I said, what we want to do is get him, right? I can teach him. We can teach him that. It's very teachable how to do automations. But what we want to do is get him, because if he can figure out how to do that, he can then help other clients where we're helping on tools that we have no idea about. We have to go figure it out. That's a key trait, right? For this role is he has that trait. I believe he has that trait. And then it's just, let's bring him on and let's see. Doesn't mean we knew he was going to be a smash hit or not, right? Turns out he's great, right? And he loves us. Right, he loves what we get to do, and he's really connected with it at that deep level. And so then those four values are connected, and he's demonstrating a lot of those. And so that's kind of how we hire as best as we can. Obviously, it's nothing like, hey, it's on a checklist, and it's like, cool. Let's answer these questions, and then we'll get the answers. It's putting in through like those scenarios of like, what happens when this happens with you, and then you can't just say, do you live up to this core value? Yes, I do, right? And then
how do you check that? I mean, and that's the process I want to understand is, like anything with a relationship, when you first meet the person, that's the best you're going to get, whether it's an employee, whether it's, and then later on you're finding out, in your personal life, you might be finding out there's these gaseous anomalies, and you're going, did we get a dog? And, is it... So how do you go through that assessment to find out, is this really, is this person actually going to be there? What are they presenting is a real thing? Is this really who they are? How do you do that?
And that's so interesting. And it's a lot of like also observing them and how they respond. But when I say that, it's like, okay, so this Pietro is like, hey, look, how do you want to start with us, right? He's quit his business, and it's not like he has a full-time job or anything, and he's like, this is what I want to do, guys, with you guys. As much as I want to work with you full-time, I think we need to test the waters. You need to get to know me, I need to get to know you guys and what you do. So why don't I work for part-time with you? When we grow from there and see how we go, right? And he proposed these things, and it's about observing other people, like how do they propose they want to work with us? Is it more in their advantage, or is it actually like a good even type of like fair dance, right? We don't know each other, we both respect that, and it's also like he was humble enough to know, look, he didn't over like exaggerate anything, right? But this is us in our companies. Like we want humble people, right? I don't walk around going, Damian, you're like, hey, I need you, Richard, to go do these systems. Have you worked with this tool? I will never, fake it till I make it, right? I've done that already in my life before, right? Where I'm like on the stage and all of that. And I realized that's not me. That's not how I like to operate. How I like to operate is like, Damian, okay, that tool you have, I Googled it real quick now while we've been talking. I looked at it. I don't have experience on it, so I'm not going to lie to you, but it looks like this other tool we work with. It looks very similar, right? And I think we can learn fast on it. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm hiring people, is whether they're putting on a face and a front saying, I know all this stuff, right? Or do they admit their faults, right? And be like, look, I don't know that tool, but I know I can learn it really fast, right? And it's observing those things and observing how do they engage with the negotiation process with us as well. It's like, are they trying to take more for themselves, or are they willing to be like, hey, I talked, but I want to show you. I want to walk here, and you can see me walk, and then you can see the results. And in 3 months' time, we can talk more and then do more, right? That way. And so it just depends a bit on the situation that we have or the role that we're hiring for. But often we know even when we hire, we're taking a bet. It doesn't mean what they said is going to happen. And so we observe for a month, 2 months, 3 months to see if they're a proper fit. Do they engage with the team? Do they do all these other things? So we also know we treat the whole probation period as a further interview. Right. So we don't get hung up on like, oh, we hired them and then they suck. Right. It's like, look, we've been hiring more than enough to know that, look, it takes that time for them to understand how we work and then to really see if they can fit in with it or they don't. And then most of the time, if they don't, this is probably a fault that we have, is particularly me, is I will be so understanding. I'm like, how do I make this work with you, Damian? How do I make this work? How do we do this? Are we missing something? We're not doing it right. And, for us, it's like when you come with us, it's kind of like family. Yeah. And it sounds cheesy. It sounds typical, but that's what we want to create here. And if it doesn't suit with you, it's like, it's very rare we fire someone, right? We only fire someone if they've done something like, out of line or, really, really like
just change the key code so they can't come back in. Is that right?
Right. Like, there's something weird, right? Where they say, "Hey, I'm here," and then it's like don't respond, right? For like ages. They're like, "Hey, we're remote, so like it's not acceptable, right? For you to just work on. Yes, you can work on your own time, but at the same time, it's like we're collaborative, right? So everyone works together. You're not siloed off by yourself, right? In any situation. So yeah.
And how do you, when we're talking about finding employees, especially, so now the demographics are shifting and it is much, much more challenging to find people to do the work because there just isn't the workforce there. How do you make yourself, your organization, attractive to people so people actually want to work with you, that you're attracting the higher quality talent?
It's sounds silly, but it's, I think, simple, right, Damian? Is just treat them like real people. We try and treat our people. We try to be generous with our team, right? Like sometimes when we're not making profits, I'll still be like, hey, man, I think this person, we can give them a bit more, right? I think, we try and support people through their hard times. So like when they have family issues, when they have to take some time off, those types of things, we support them through it. If they need like pay advances and stuff like that because they have medical bills or something to pay for, whether it's themselves or their family, we will approve those things. And it's about, I guess, taking care of the people as best as we can and being clear with them as well. So like, if I can't do it or we can't do it, it's like, hey, this is why, right? And being clear with them, like, there's been cases where people are like, hey, I want a pay rise. And I'm like, have you looked at our last month's like results, right? And it was like, I don't know why you're asking, right? And, it's being clear and upfront with them as much as we can to be like, look, this is what needs to happen. You're not performing at this level. You need to be here, right? And either they understand that or not. And, for us, it's with Lynn, it's a lot of like making sure that we're generous right, with our team too. So, every month we have a company huddle where Lynn would run games, right, for our team. And then, we actually give out like cash prizes, right, for our team. And, even Australians and local staff are involved in it too, right? And it's just those types of things that we try and do here to look after people. We give them we have a birthday list where every month me and another girl in my team, we look at it and it's like, what do we need to get this person for their birthday, right there? Or, hey, they just moved house. Let's give them like $100 Kmart voucher, right? So they can go buy stuff at Kmart for their new house. We want to do things like that so that it feels like it's a family. I really care about you. But not only that, it's not just the money side, it's also the time, right? So I spend a lot of my time with one-on-ones and chatting with people, messaging them sometimes, right? Where I'm like, hey, so you had to take time off for your mom is, how are you doing, right? Those types of things that.
How do you take that a step further? Because that's for the people that you've already got in the organization. Do you actually have processes to let these things be known beforehand when you're attracting people?
Look, so some of the perks, right, like the whole RDO thing, those other things, yes, some of them are made known, right? But at that same time, I don't think we do a big push for internal hires as much, right? The client-facing ones, yes, right, like they're made clear and they're being hired regularly on that side there. But in terms of internal roles, there's not that many, right? So it's kind of like who do we know and who do we see sometimes, right? So sometimes we see virtual assistants that work with clients, and then let's say their client stops with them because of financial reasons, right? We then look at that person like, that person has some interesting capabilities here, right? Maybe we can get them in our team, so that then, we can bring them across. I think the biggest thing that most people are looking for in the virtual space anyway, right, is stability, right? And because we've been around for almost like a little close to 10 years or something like that now, right, is that people in the VA space, there's certainty, right? And that's what a lot of VAs are missing in their world, is they don't have that certainty because they're working with small businesses. You don't know they're going to make it through next year or next 5 years, And so, for us is we don't go advertising about it. We put it on our website. We do put it on like socials from here and here, but most of the time it's like referrals and people that we observe, right, when they're placed out with clients with us.
Awesome. And we're getting to the point where we need to start winding this up as well. But before we do, can you tell us about the services that Outsourcing Angel offers and how people can reach out to you?
Yeah. So, Outsourcing Angels typically has been a virtual assistant recruitment firm. So if you ever needed a VA, right, you'd come to us, we help find you a VA, and then we help, manage the VA with you. So that's been what we have been, and we've been transforming the business now because there's always been that trap, right, Damian, that people think, I just needed a body or I just need someone to go do this stuff. And that's where we created this whole Systemise and Scale Up service, where it's more of a consulting service where we'll come in, Damian, we'll talk to you, we understand your client life cycle flow, right, from being a lead to how you close them, how you onboard them, how you deliver to them, how you offboard them. We look at that and identify processes where we can either automate or streamline, right, from what you have currently to make it even easier, so it frees you up as a business owner to move out of delivery, out of onboarding and into admin and more forward, so that you can go make more sales, so you can grow your company, right? And so that whole service there is really what we're hammering in now, so that it prepares you, so that then after you finish that program there, we then get you a virtual assistant to slot in with all the manual things that we could not automate, or it was too expensive to automate there. And that's basically what we're trying to do now, right? We're trying to be a systemization company that focuses on these 3 pillars of processes, technology, and people, to then help you grow your business and scale it that way.
I love that. That's awesome. And we'll put the contact details in the show notes as well so people can reach out to you for assistance in the areas that you help them with. Now,
Hmm.
before we go, one last thing. What would be the key wisdoms nutshell? What do you want people to take away from this interview? What would be your last statement where this is what you want them to take away?
Oh, geez. Talked a lot here, right, Damien? And I think in here, if there's anything for the listeners to take away, I think it's this is we touched on it very lightly, or a little bit of it is about that control side, right?
Mm.
And this is if you want to scale your business, you want to grow bigger than just yourself, then you're going to have to practice letting go of control so that other people can come in to help you grow your business and do more, right? There's no point having an assistant. There's no point having a partner, more other people in the business if you're still going to micromanage like crazy, right? Because you need that for yourself because that's what you're used to,
Mm.
and I'd say if you're really serious about growing and not trying to follow a trend or chase a number, and you really want to and create that real business freedom, right, that a business is supposed to bring to you, then you're going to need to let go of control and enable yourself to trust other people to do the right thing in your business. And that means you will be taken advantage of sometimes, right? You hire the wrong person and all that. But, just have the right processes in place to pick that up, work it through, and learn from it. And it really is, it's scary, right? I know it's scary to let go of control, but it will free you up. Control doesn't give you freedom, really. It just keeps you trapped.
I love that. That's sage advice. Richard, it's been so wonderful having you on Growing Revenue and Profit. The information you've shared, particularly in today's environment where we've got a demographic shift and it's really making finding employees a challenge. The knowledge and wisdom that you've shared on how to do that, that's extremely helpful. I encourage the listeners to go back and re-listen to that because there's such sage advice from Richard throughout this podcast. Richard, thank you very much for taking time to be on the show.
Thank you, Damian, man. And I hope, the listeners here got a great sense of value here. And so looking forward to talking more, mate.